Hey guys, Gareth here from Intent Architect, and in this video, I'm going to walk you guys through some of the latest features and upgrades that we've made to the platform as part of our 4.6 release. So we're super excited about this release as it adds some really powerful capabilities to the platform, but it's also a foundation for even greater things to come, as I'm going to show you guys in a minute. So let's jump right in. As part of this demo today, I'm just going to go ahead and create us a new application. We'll just use the clean architecture. We'll call it something like, I don't know, My Commerce, and just select the components, and we'll leave all the defaults and just say create the application. All right, so the first thing that you guys are going to notice as soon as this application loads is that our landing tab is quite different to what it used to be, right? So the first thing we've got here is what we call the overview. And the whole idea behind this was to make it absolutely crystal clear how Intent Architect within an application works mechanistically, right? So at the very center of it all, we've got the software factory execution, we've got our code base, of course, we've got our different designers over here, our modules, which is what drives the architecture and the patterns, and then the settings to fine tune those architectural patterns and essentially allow us to engage with our preferences within our particular application. We can also take a tour over here. So this is also just to make things a little bit easier, and you can go through these in your own time. But this is really just there, particularly for new users. So if you're already a veteran with Intent Architect, there's probably not a lot here that this will explain. This is probably already quite crystal clear in your minds. But for those who are a little bit newer to Intent Architect, we are hoping that this is going to give them a much easier place to start and to grasp what the intentions are and how mechanistically Intent Architect works. The second thing that you guys are going to notice here as part of 4.6 is that we have an AI assistant. And this is a super powerful AI assistant that we'll get into in a minute. It can do a lot of stuff for us already, and it's also the foundation for, as I mentioned earlier, really, really great things to come. So we'll get into that in a minute. The other thing I wanted to point out over here is that our software factory, as part of a new application, has already been kicked off, right? So this, in the past, you'd have to kick it off yourself. You'd have to start it up. But what we're doing now is, as part of all applications, especially new ones, we start the software factory automatically. And we also remember whether that software factory was active when you close your application. So if you come back to your application later, it'll start it up automatically for you. And if you guys recall what we did in 4.5 with our hot software factory restarts, the whole idea behind this is to get these software factories hot as soon as possible so that all subsequent changes are really, really lightning fast and can come into the system, within a second or even less than a second in a lot of cases. The other thing that you guys will notice here as part of 4.6 is if we launch up the software factory, you guys can see that we did a full overhaul of the software factory experience, right? So this will look completely different to what you guys saw in the previous versions of Intent Architect. What we've got over here is we've got all of our changes listed out. This is also inside of a folder view, so we can see the structure of our application out the gates. We can, of course, adjust this as and where we need to. But we can also switch to just a change view. So for those of you who are more used to just the changes being listed out as they were in the previous release, you can get those changes listed out and you can, mouse up and mouse down all of your changes over here. Of course, we've got the diff now in line with Intent Architect. This is super useful. Of course, these are all brand new files. But we've also got a lot of the controls that you would expect to have within any diff tool. So for those of you who are using VS Code, a lot of those same controls are already over here, and it'll remember your setting in between sessions for this particular application. So it might be very useful when you're starting up an application to run everything in inline view because there is nothing in the code base already, and we just want to inspect all of the code that's coming in. So we can go ahead and we can say apply changes. All of that code is going to be dropped off, and we can just minimize our software factory and come back. Next thing I want to jump into with you guys here is the new AI assistant. So the first thing that I can point out here is that we've got a couple of modes for the AI assistant. We've got ask mode, we've got agent mode, and we have plan mode. And this will probably align with what a lot of you are already experiencing in the industry. Copilot has some similar terminology. Claude Code has similar terminology in certain areas. And so we can probably quite intuitively understand that ask mode here is going to have essentially read-only access to Intent Architect and this particular application. It can ask any question within the solution, and agent mode is going to have the ability to actually act on your designs in your application. And then plan mode is a much more powerful setting out of a plan and then getting it to run. The agent can run through the plan steps a lot more thoroughly, right? So it's for much bigger changes. Right. The other thing that we can see here is we've got different integrations. This will largely depend on what API keys you've provided in Intent Architect. So you can see I've provided a few API keys. But the one thing I can also just mention here is that I haven't provided it an OpenAI API key. That's already coming through by default. And you can see that I've got a couple of, I've got about 1,000 free credits on the Intent Architect account, and that's really because we do lots and lots of demos. So we don't want to have absolutely no chance of running out of free credits. But what we decided to do is we decided to give um, a, I think it's at this stage 150 free credits, which you could do quite a lot of stuff with those free credits. But it's across the board for all of our users, so that you guys have access to these AI capabilities, whether you have an account with OpenAI or Anthropic or not, right? So that was just something we decided to do, and that's something that we can turn off if particular organizations would prefer us not to make that accessible to the users, but it is there for absolutely everyone to start with. Okay, so let's get into using this. Let's say I want to start off, I'm going to go in agent mode, and let's say I want to start this off by saying, um, I want you to design an e-commerce domain. Um, and this we don't need to be more specific than this, but we can say, I would like it to contain order, order line, product, buyer, address. We can be specific, just say VO for value object. Add all appropriate attributes and associations. Um, and enums maybe, right, if needed. And then we can just say add to diagram. Now, a lot of the stuff you don't necessarily need to say. Intent Architect, a lot of the context behind it, it knows what to do. But if you want to be explicit so that the LLM doesn't really get confused, we can just go ahead and be a bit more explicit. So we can fire that off. What you'll see it'll do here is it's got the controls. It says, let me go and inspect the domain. And let me check what's inside of the package. All right. And at this point, it's probably going to start doing some thinking and quite a bit of thinking, because it's going to actually start designing out uh, this e-commerce application for us, and it's going to start laying that out in our design in a minute. Now, the one thing I could just mention here is that this is also connected to our documentation. So we've got a RAG system set up for the documentation. So if you ask any questions of the AI chat, whether it's in agent mode or an ask mode, it will very happily go and pass that query over to our docs, and it'll fetch the relevant information. And so we have already been expanding the docs for quite some time. And so there's a lot of documentation on lots of different topics within Intent Architect. So if you have a question, the first place to start would be just to ask the question inside of your agent or your ask mode, and it should be able to give you that. But you could, of course, also ask it for insights into your application. There you can see, by the way, it's just coming back with a lot of the building that it wants to do. And we can see our product and our order status and our address. What else have we got here? Buyer and order. And so it's done a pretty good job here, and it's going to lay it out in a diagram for us. All right. One thing we have noticed is that the LLMs are okay at laying things out in diagrams. They're not amazing at it. So just keep that in mind when you are asking it to lay things out for you. But just at a glance, this looks absolutely perfect, right? So we can immediately validate here that our design looks pretty good. There's a lot of things here that could be questionable. Like, for example, we would probably want to switch over to, well, in fact, we can do that as part of the demo. So convert, let's say create a money value object and replace attributes appropriately. Appropriately. Thank you. Okay, so we can just kick that off in the meantime. But what you can see here is that this has control of our designing systems. If we're happy with these changes, by the way, we can say save, but this is all happening in memory, right? So none of this has actually been persisted to the hard drive. That's why the whole this color over here, where it's slightly more yellowed, I would say, is an indication that these are all still dirty changes. You can see that the software factory is still up to date. But if we want to actually save these changes, we must push save or Control S, and then our software factory is going to align this. By the way, you can see there that it's switched over to money for all of these, and it's created us an amount and a currency over here. Now, we would probably want to tell it to convert currency to an enum, for example, but that so we can go through our design and we can immediately see exactly what's going on at every step of the way. And if we bring up our software factory execution, we can see all of those individual changes as throughout the system as they're coming in. So our address, our money, our order status, all of the different entities, the repositories, configurations for all of this. And all of this is going to be following whatever architecture we installed, which just happens to be the clean architecture in this case. So we can go ahead and say apply changes, and we can be we could continue evolving our application from here. And what you can see here is that we've used up about 55 of the credits that we've got. So this is actually a fair amount of work, but you can see that we've got a lot of space to do quite a lot of work here with Intent Architect as we back and forth with it. And of course, the larger the context window gets, the more credits it will use. So just keep that in mind. You can always create new chats over here, and you can remove your chats as and when you need to. Just note that, by the way, we do not persist the chats anywhere. And the so if you shut down your application, those chats will be lost. That's something that we're probably going to bring in a later release. If it's something that you guys feel is very desirable, just let us know if that's something you guys would like us to work on in the short term. We just felt that for ourselves, using a lot of AI for our own development, that a lot of the time you just really wish that those chat windows would just go away and not just build up. But that was just something that we decided internally not to invest there for now. We do see ourselves following the industry standard of persisting these downstream. The other things that you guys will notice here is, of course, I can copy this. There is, if you guys would like to send us some feedback on how it's doing. So if it does something that you just don't like, or it was being a bit silly, and you felt like it could do better, just give us a response and we will go through this. Just so you know, it will send us everything that's visible from a chat window perspective. We won't see your designs. We won't see exactly what the tools returned when they made all these different calls. So just keep in mind that a lot of your privacy around your actual application's design is kept, but everything that is in text will be sent over to us. We don't persist that anywhere. It's just passed through into our feedback channels. And so our team would, from time to time, go through those just to see how we're doing. So please let us know if something's doing well. And also, please absolutely let us know if it's not giving you what you want. And of course, you can explain to us directly here and just push enter. You can stop the AI if you'd like, but that would be very, very useful for us to, if you'd like to just explain what went wrong. So we'll be looking at upgrading the feedback systems, but we wanted to give ourselves, at least for this release, something for you guys to give us a way for you guys to give us feedback on how this system is working. All right, great, guys. The next thing I wanted to show you guys, and this is really the last thing I wanted to cover, not to make this video too long, is a very common use case is, just as an example, we can go here and we can say, open up an IDE, and let's say we open up the buyer. All right. And what we can see here is, let's just give it a minute to open, is that this is the code for our buyer over here. And what very oftentimes happens, and this is either happening directly through the developers' work that they're doing, or you are using LLMs to, like, so you're using Claude Code or something like that to go and make some changes in your code base, and that's perfectly fine, right? But what it tends to happen is downstream, you ask for a feature, and something like a property like is active got added over here. My Visual Studio is still taking some time to warm up. Okay. And this is active flag over here has been added. And this was done either by us as developers or by the LLM. And what we have to do is, and this is a very small change, but when we come back to Intent Architect and we rerun our software factory execution, we've got this change coming in here, right? And if we take a look at it, it wants to remove our is active flag. And we could look at this and say, no, that's not what I want. I wanted to keep this. This is exactly what I wanted. But now, in the past versions of Intent Architect, our only option would be to go back to the design. This video editor blocks out my mouse clicks over there. I'd have to go back to the design, right click, add the attributes. And right now, this is in the buyer. I'm already here. I know where to go. But in applications where they get past a certain size, you could have lots of different changes that came in, and you do not want to have to go through each of those changes and fix them one by one. So that's where we brought in this syncing capability, right? So with the syncing capability, you can also right click and just say sync code back to the design. But what this allows us to do is it'll read the code and actually sync it back into the design for us. And we can do this at scale. So we could have 10 of these changes coming in, and all of these could have this icon over here. We can just click this icon, by the way, and what you'll notice is that immediately our is active is added. Okay, it's added over here. And of course, whatever changes came in, there could have been a lot. This is just a very super simple example. All of those changes would be added, and we would get the dirty flag highlighting where there are updates or added attributes into the mix too. And if we want to curiously see what's going on, we can also undo these changes, Control Z and Control Y. Okay, so this hasn't actually happened yet. This is still also in memory. And so if we're happy with these changes to be synchronized back to our designer, we must push save, rerun the software factory execution. And now you'll notice that the buyer change is removed, but that it is bringing in the configuration, right? Which is something that maybe the LLM had missed or had gone had and made some inconsistency. So we're still remaining 100% true to one of the core benefits that Intent Architect brings is through the deterministic systems that consistency and maintainability into our architectures through the designs and the models. That is something that we are not deviating from at all. We're just essentially that is still the foundation, but the AI is coming in more and more. And as you guys will see in later releases, we're going to be using it more and more to help us accelerate the development through different coding agents and the ability for it to do designs. And so we've got an amazing North Star and vision for the product just over the next 6 months to 12 months. So not going to spoil the surprise at this point, but what you guys will see is you'll see a lot of very, very exciting features coming out in the next couple of releases. And I hope that these features that I've taken you guys through today are useful to you. Please let us know what you guys think. You can just shoot us some feedback over here by clicking on the little smiley face over there. Even if it's, please guys, share the critical feedback with us too. We really want to know how we can improve the platform. Tell us what you'd like to see us work on. And until the next one, wishing you guys all the best and an absolutely crushing 2026. Cheers.